What's up, everyone? Welcome back to my Week 2 matchup for the World Pokemon Federation, or the WPF Psycho Boost Division. We are here for our matchup against Strange. He's our Week 2 opponent. And first wanted to just briefly cover that my team is a little bit different. We did use one free agent transaction after our Week 1 game going into Week 2. We dropped Sableye and Swalot for Revavroom. Revavroom is a very interesting Pokemon. I think it's pretty niche for what it can do and when it can come in certain matchups. But I felt like my team overall didn't really have a very reliable grounded poison. You can argue that Rev is not really reliable either, but I felt like with the matchups I was never really going to bring Swalot, and there were some matchups that Revavroom actually looked pretty good in moving forward, and it kind of offered a lot of good utility defensively as like a parting shot user, or offensively even with that setup with Shift Gear, mixed coverage for certain steel types it can't hit, so I thought it was pretty useful. Thought it was better than Swalot, and then we also gave up Sableye, so we did lose our Ghost type. But looking at the future matchups, I just didn't see myself bringing Sableye, and there was no, there's no Annihilate drafted, so didn't really feel like I needed to keep it. So yeah, Rev's on the team. I have 9 Mons instead of 10 this time. Our opponent has all 11, so yeah, why don't we just hop right into the matchup. So as you can see, my opponent has Great Tusk, Terra Walking Wake, Roaring Moon, Torkoal, Enamorous Eye, Bronzong, Arboliva, Muck, Magnezone, Haunter, and Carbink. So I think of this when I look at it as a pretty top-heavy team. He has that very strong Sun Core with his first 3 picks, all of them Photosynthesis Mons. Wake with Terra is very interesting. It's going to be very difficult to revenge, just because I have to figure out what Terra type it's going to be. But I'll have to play it in a way where I don't allow it free turns, which could be tough. So that was kind of my main focus. But the more I was looking at, the main thing I looked at was Walking Wake. Walking Wake is going to be the biggest thing I needed to check across the team, and it could either be a multitude of types here, but I narrowed it down to 2. I figured it would probably be Terra Water here, because Hydro Steam in the Sun gets the boost. You get the Terra Water, basically an adaptability Sun boosted water move. Nothing on my team can take that, not even Screamtail. Even with the Sun Spadef boosting with Photosynthesis, Screamtail can get 2-shot by Specs. It's just not reliable at all. I'm going to get annihilated upon switching, so I figured if it is water, at the very least I have ways to revenge it, especially if I can chip it. And then the other type I considered that he could bring was Steel. Steel would allow him to just completely break through Screamtail while also having key resist, things that try to lock into, say, a fairy move, trying to hit the dragon typing, or if he is Terra Water, like I expect Terra Water, he could resist Wendell's Ice Beam and set up on it. Meowscarado, it'd be interesting for him. And then Arcanine's Extreme Speed. So it's interesting. I wasn't sure which one he might bring. Those were the 2 Terra types I was leaning towards. I thought I think Steel's a bit worse into Iron Hands, especially depending on Dragonite. If Dragonite can maintain scale, it's also much worse into Dragonite as well. I think Water is just overall better click. There's absolutely no switch into it, and it'll still plow through Screamtail and Iron Hands in the Sun with Choice Specs. I just don't see a check to it. It could be like Choice Specs, Terra Water with I think Speed Boosting, and that can 2-shot everything. So that was my main concern, trying to make a team revolved around containing it while also being able to revenge his other threats. Those other threats include Roaring Moon and Great Tusk. While Great Tusk offensively is pretty strong, I think it might have to handle a more defensive role for both Iron Hands, maybe Dragonite, You know, Dragonite could be mixed here, but I doubt he thinks I'm going to bring Hurricane, just because Hurricane is awful in the sun, 30% accurate. But it is his one and only switch in to Iron Hands. Nothing else on his team wants to take this long on, not even Torkoal. So I think Tusk has to be it. He could use a sun boosting the defense for a great Tusk, and he can easily take Hands' hits. So it should be interesting. Banded Hands, for example, can just freely click a close combat here, or even amongst other moves, it can get a lot of reliable damage off. And then Roaring Moon's interesting. It can be decently strong, but even like a defensive Hands or like a defensive Scream Tail or Dawn Fan, it's actually gonna be really annoying for Moon to actually do any damage. But it can click U-turn, which will facilitate getting in Wake, which is partly the annoying part. But if I can get chip damage on it, especially with like a Rocky Helmet, I'll put it in range of Iron Bundle or Meowscarada, even though Meowscarada really doesn't need any chip. Torkoal, I think he might bring Torkoal here just because his Sun is so oppressive versus this team. He can start picking off a lot of my walls, force to use my Revengers, and if I don't get the key chip or early positioning correct, he's just going to overwhelm me, and I'm not going to find a way to win this. And then to top it all off, he has an Amorous Eye with Contrary. I originally was trying to bring a Revavroom here with like Shookah Berry, trying like with a Spadef set, trying to take on an Amorous, but ended up not being as good as I wanted it to be, mainly because of Contrary. If I Parting Shot versus this Enamorous, I have absolutely no way to revenge it, and he could easily just be like the superpower set anyways and just bypass any Spadef investment. So I just felt like it wasn't that reliable here, so you're going to see I did not bring Revavroom, even though I did consider it. Another reason I also didn't want to bring it was Bronzong. Bronzong's really interesting. I have no idea how he's going to tailor his team around Dragonite or Bundle, but I would imagine Bronzong is going to be the Bundle switch in. Nothing else wants to take an Ice move. Torkoal really can't switch in because neutrally I'm still going to be able to two-shot max defense Torkoal if he is Spadef. He's not handling Hands any better than he was going to anyways. And then the reason I think Bronzong could come is because of Heatproof. Heatproof Bronzong. I don't think he'll bring Levitate if he's using this as his bundle pivot, because I could easily be a Terra Fire bundle here. Ice Beam hits, or Ice Beam / Freeze Dry can hit Roaring Moon, Great Tusk, Wake, Enamorous, and then whatever Terra type I choose to be, I could use it versus Bronzong and Torkoal with Sun up. I'm going to be doing a lot of damage over time, and Bronzong and Sun is going to get annihilated by a Terra Fire, Terra Blast. And so doing the calcs, I think it does like 30-ish% or something along those lines. I didn't want to do less damage than I did, and I didn't want to be weak to rocks particularly because I felt like there was a better type I could use. So you'll see what I do choose to go around with a type that kind of helps me around Bronzong and helps neutrally hit everything else. But yeah, and then the other main issue I needed was just pivoting into Wake, and then how am I going to revenge like a speed boosted Roaring Moon, a speed boosted Wake, and we'll get to that when we do. So why don't we just hop into the build in particular. But yeah, I do think he just brings the top 6. I think those are the most reliable into the matchup. I could see a Muck potentially as well. Muck could come as like a pivot to like Meowscarada. Could also be a bundle pivot if he wants to go Muck and then switch Bronzong into Dragonite with Levitate. I could see that potentially being a thing, especially since Bronzong got access to Ice Spinner, Nightshade as well. But he would have to bench something for Muck. Maybe the Enamorous, but Enamorous is pretty free click as well. I only have Revavroom and Arcanine Hisui as my Moonblast switch in, so It'll be interesting. I think if he does bring Muck, I don't think he'll bring Roaring Moon. I think Roaring Moon is probably the worst of the top 3 here into this matchup. If he were to bench one, I think it'd be Moon. A lot of you probably already know that I have a strong dislike for this Pokemon. I don't think Roaring Moon is that great a Pokemon. But yeah, let's hop right into the build. So pretty simple. So the first mon I built, well, first 2 mons I built immediately were Bundle and Meowscarada, and you can see them on your screen right here. We have an Iron Bundle set. It's, like I said, I wanted to bring Terra Fire, but I did not want to be weak to rocks, which meant I was forced to run Boots, but it also meant I was revenged easily by Walking Wake, if he was speed boosting, Earthquakes from like Roaring Moon and stuff, so I figured it would be weight, and the reason I didn't want him to click Earthquake is because I want him to take Rocky Helmet Chip or Bundle later on. So I meant I needed him to be clicking U-Turn, Crunch, Dragon Claw, anything other than a non-contact move. And so I decided to bring Terra Ghost Bundle. It does 50% to a max Spadef Bronzong, or roughly, I think like 49%. To a max Spadef Bronzong. If he's anything other, it's going to get obliterated. If he brings Muck, this is his only switch-in, per se. But if he runs Spadef investment, he's not going to have defense investment for anything else. So I figured it's a worthwhile trade. But you see, I run Ice Beam, Terra Blast for Terra Blast Ghost, which is pretty neutral click. He only has 2 resist to it, being his Arboliva immune and his Roaring Moon being resistant, and I can hit both of those with Ice Beam, and then Freeze Dry for Wake in the chance he opts to not Terra or something, but I have it. I didn't need any other move, really. I didn't need Hydro Pump. Felt like Hydro Pump was kind of irrelevant, especially if the sun is up. So this is what I'm running, and then U-Turn as my last move, just to pivot out. Again, I didn't want Flip Turn, just because in the sun it's going to do no damage anyways, plus the 2 things that could pivot around it. I mean, I could just U-turn, but if he decided to stay in with like Roaring Moon, say he's out of range of like an ice move, or he's like Yachi Berry and he like brings it in hard, I can just U-turn. It'll do a lot more damage to Moon than Flip Turn would do. But yeah, that's Bundle. You can tell that we have the Assault Vest on it. We have enough speed to outspeed Roaring Moon, and then enough Spadef to guarantee live a Specs, a Specs Terra Water Hydro Steam off lead. The reason I had that is because Bundle is my lead. This is what I'm leading with. It leads the best versus everything. Even versus Torkoal, I could just switch and go into something else. So this is the position that I am in. And so, yeah, that's my Bundle set. So this thing can basically revenge and break through his team. It's going to be the main Revenger, and then kind of a late game Revenger, especially if Sun is up. I needed something else that can revenge when Torkoal has a Sun up for Roaring Moon, even a Walking Wake. And I think Walking Wake should be Terra Water here. But he could be Steel, but I think Water is way stronger into this team, my team. So I bring in a Scarf Meowscarada. It outspeeds everything on his team with Scarf. Nothing outspeeds it. Unless he brings some like setup sets or whatever, but for the most part this will outspeed it. Flower Trick again for Terra Water. It'll allow me to also break through a potential like Bulk Up Great Tusk, or even a Namorous. If I've gotten it chipped, I can revenge it with Flower Trick critting through. Should do like around 35%. And then we have Play Rough. Obviously it's the most neutral click versus things like Namorous, Roaring Moon, Great Tusk, and Wake. And then U-Turn, and then Toxic Spikes. U-Turn again, just if I can pick off something like Moon or anything else, I can U-Turn out so I can reset momentum so I'm not locked into like a bad click, especially if I don't know the Wake's Terra type yet. So that would be the position I'm in, and then I have Toxic Spikes. I was debating whether or not to put Knockoff or Brick Break in this last slot. Knockoff was decent for removing items, but I felt like I didn't need it to pressure Bronzong because I had Bundle and I have some other mons in the back, so I figured I didn't need Knockoff. I could bring Brick Break, and Brick Break would allow me to hit Magnezone harder. I could still hit Roaring Moon at a neutral, and then if he is Terra Steel Wake, I could find a way to hit him by not locking into something bad. But I was looking at it, and if I think the top 6 coming with like Muck potentially coming over Roaring Moon, there's a good chance that I could get up T-Spikes, especially if I can remove Muck early with the pressure. So I ended up putting up Toxic Spikes. There are situations where I can say U-turn off lead with Bundle versus like I don't know, like a Torkoal or Wake, and say he doesn't want to stay in, or Namorous, whatever. A U-turn, he brings in Bronzong, and then I can go Meowscarada, which would pressure him immediately, and I can end up clicking Toxic Spikes, setting him up, especially if there's no Muck, and he'd be forced to spin. Tusk would be poisoned, which is pretty big for me, because then that puts it on a timer, which I need this thing chipped tremendously for my third Mon to be a solid win con. And so we go into our win con, which is the Hisuian Arcanine. Outside of Rev, this is my only switch into a Namorous, and it's not that amazing because he can just kill me with Earth Power the turn after. He doesn't have to be Scarfed. He doesn't have to be Specs. He could be Pixie Plate with coverage. He could be Agility. I have to be very careful. So I need to preserve the Air Balloon until I'm ready to set up, because it'll allow me to bypass things. I have enough defense investment to live a Superpower from a Namorous, so I don't die to that after Rocks, so I can set up with that. But you can see I have Stabs, Head Smash, Flare Blitz with Rock Head, Agility, and Will-O-Wisp. The last move was whatever. I considered Extreme Speed, but I didn't see the value in it, especially when I was just going to set up Agility anyways. So the other move I considered was Protect. Protect would actually allow me to kind of work around whatever Walking Wake's Terra type was. Because especially if he brought it in, if he is, like I think he is going to be either Water or Steel, he could try to bait the Head Smash and go for the Terra Steel. He'd live the hit, and he can just kill me. So there are scenarios where I was saying I could just Protect, or I can make the hard read and click Flare Blitz into him, because at least if he's Terra Water and the sun is up, I'm going to do a tremendous amount of damage, and I could potentially revenge him later with Meowscarada or Bundle if sun is gone. So I figured Terra Water was way easier to revenge, because it is, in my opinion, than Terra Steel. And then if he is Terra Steel, he would die instantly. So that was my thought process. Plus, if I did get Toxic Spikes up and they stayed, if Wake came in before it terrestrialized, say, into a Steel type, then I would poison it as well, and then Flare Blitz would be a far better click, because at least he's taking Poison Chip, and I can stall him with the Mons in the back. But yeah, I definitely need a defensive Great Tusk to take chip. I think Wake needs some chip, Roaring Moon needs some chip, and then everything else kind of effectively dies to the Stabs. So Arcanine needs a little bit of help, but I ultimately didn't go with Protect. I went with Will-O-Wisp because say I'm in a position where I need to force out Namorous right away, and I don't want to use Bundle, and Bundle is like taking chip. I can use Arcanine, force it out. He'd be forced to go into like a Tusk or something, and I can Will-O-Wisp that, and that would also kind of just tell me that basically I've crippled it, and that also helps my defensive core out, since Tusk offensively is still pretty tough to switch into. But yeah, let's go with my other 3 Mons here at the bottom. So my 4th Mon ended up being Donphan. Like I said, I just need something to pivot into Roaring Moon. Even Great Tusk, I need chip. So regardless, Great Tusk or Roaring Moon taking that chip from Rocky Helmet is going to be big. Obviously, Great Tusk could be Knockoff, but looking at my team, Knockoff doesn't look too effective unless he really wants to remove, I don't know, like Hans' item. I mean, again, like he has coverage. I feel like Ice Spinner, Ground Move, Rapid Spin hits everything. He doesn't really need to run anything else. He doesn't need CC because it's redundant with these 2 Mons here. I mean, he can just Earthquake them, and then he can just spin into a balloon if there is one. So, and then he could be Stealth Rocks on this as well if he really wanted to. Or like Resto Chesto, whatever he wanted to be. So I just run Rocky Helmet Donphan. The set changed a lot. I originally had like Ice Shard on here for Roaring Moon. It was good for Enamorus. It was decent. But it did nothing to like Wake anyways. I had Earthquake for a while, but I felt like there were scenarios where if he was like banded or like Dragon Dancing with like Roaring Moon, he was spin boosting with Great Tusk and he was able to just plow through my team, especially with the sun up. Wake could set up with Dragon Dance. I felt like I needed to kind of contain what these mons could do setting up wise. Obviously Enamorus can do something, but I at least had Ice Spinner. Ice Spinner would two-shot it, unless he was like super powering, but then he was taking Helmet. So I felt like it was fine. So ultimately decided on this set, Bulldoze, Ice Spinner, knock off Rapid Spin. I needed Spin. His only way to block would be like a Terra Ghost Wake, which is very revengeable, and then a Hunter, which I do have knockoff for. Knockoff's also pretty good for Bronzong if he decides to run some like Levitate set to kind of contain this. But not having Earthquake was an interesting choice. I do far less damage to certain mons, but ultimately I think Donphan's just here to get chip and prevent things from setting up effectively, and I feel like Bulldoze does that effectively. I can neutralize the spins, can neutralize the Dragon Dances from Roaring Moon and Wake. Overall, that seemed pretty reliable to me. And then Spinner, I can two-shot Roaring Moon if he's not bulky, which he can't really be if he wants to be speed boosting with Band, with Photosynthesis. And then Enamorus I can two-shot as well. Muck, I don't really do a whole lot of damage with Bulldoze, but I figure I will be able to Rocky Helmet, but if he is cursed, that could be a little bit annoying for me, as I don't really have a whole lot. I can Wisp him at least, but if he's like Rest Talk, I know he's kind of limited with coverage, and Rocky Helmet could come in play, but I do have some Wish support, as you can see with my Screamtail set. Another Light Clay this week, Reflect, Light Screen, Wish, Gleam. I originally had this as some like Max Spadef Citrus set with like Light Screen, Encore, or like T-Wave on there as well. But ultimately I realized Wake is so oppressive with speed boosting and specs, he can still two-shot Max Spadef anyways with Terra Water, or even like Terra Steel. So I just figured it was just better to run enough speed to outspeed Walking Wake. I outspeed it. I can outspeed Enamorus as well, which is pretty good. Take the hit, I can Light Screen. Reflect is also pretty effective if Great Tusk is becoming problematic for me, even Roaring Moon. Wish, I can Wish Pass into anything, especially my Assault Vest bundle. I can just get the thing back to full. I can use it to take a hit from like Great Tusk, Enamorus, even Wake, and it'll heal pretty effectively. And then Gleam was mainly to hit Tusk, Roaring Moon, Enamorus, and then Wake could also be pretty strong here, I would say. Wake could be, I mean, if he's water, I can hit it for like 20-25%, but if he has steel, I can't really hit that. So I do kind of wish I went into the game with maybe like an Encore T-Wave like I had before instead of Reflect, but there were situations where Roaring Moon and Great Tusk could just overwhelm Donphan, and with no hands around, like it would be pretty tough. So yeah, but then my other defensive piece along with Donphan and Screamtail ended up being my Dragonite. It's a very interesting set. It's a max HP, has a lot of attack investment, some defense and special attack EVs, and then some Spadef, with a minus speed nature plus Spadef nature. This is my switch in to Walking Wake. There is a good chance Wake, I feel like, could be just choice locked. It's so non-drawback here that he can just click Hydro Steam and then Dragon Pulse and then just have like other coverage moves. I don't know. He could even be some setup set with like Mystic Water and try to like just plow through everything. I needed something that could take a hit. Enamorus doesn't kill this from full if multi-scale somehow like got barely broken. But yeah, this is mainly just like pseudo pivot to certain things. I can use it to check certain mons. I can Dragon Claw Wake hard if he is Terra Water. And I was trying to debate like whether or not I needed to run like a different move on this so I can hit other mons effectively, but I figured this would be fine. Dragon Claw hit Roaring Moon harder, I could revenge that as well, unless he was Scale Shot. Great Tusk, I can Ice Beam and 2-shot him with Ice Beam if he's max HP, because I doubt he's going to be Spadef here. Ice Beam can 2-shot Enamorous Eye, which was pretty good for me. And then Fire Spin was kind of good chip, because if the sun is up, I at least actually force something to stay in and kind of trade health, which could be pretty good for me. And then especially like Magnezone, force him to Volt out could be nice, especially I can Roost, slow Roost on him, being minus speed, unless he's like really slow. And then Bronzong, I could trap him and kind of just Roost stall versus the Bronzong's Ice Spinner. He was gonna always do less than a third. I think the max he could do is like 33.1%, so it's less than a third. Even with the scale broken, I could Roost it off, and it really wasn't going to do a whole lot of damage there. So yeah, that was the position we're in. This is the team. Main things I'm concerned about is just making sure I position well around Wake, and then make sure I don't get early pressured by Enamorous, and then kind of keep Bundle healthy for the most part. But again, it'll just depend on what he decides to bring. I do think the top 6 are going to be the strongest like offensive impression versus my defensive build, but I could see a Muck potentially over a Roaring Moon, and then if he opts to bring Magnezone as well, but I think that's just worse into hand. So I do think it's mainly this top 6 plus Muck as the only options here. Yeah, like mainly like a max defense Tusk, Terra Water or Steel Wake, Roaring Moon with like band speed boosting, or Muck in that place like Spadef. And then if Muck's there, Bronzong would be the D-Knight check. Otherwise, his D-Knight check is just using speed boosting and offensive power. He use Scale Shot versus Dragonite. Bronzong would become the bundle pivot. Torkoal could be mixed defensive, just there to get up Sun, Rocks, and then Enamorous would be the Scarfer with like Moonblast and Superpower. I think could be his most effective choice. But yeah, that is the build. So why don't we just hop right into the match? All right, welcome back everybody to the replay we got pulled up here. As you can see, my team is on the left side, or the mons that we're seeing from the back, and then my opponent, Strange Free Octillery, has his team up there. When I first entered, I was a bit shocked. Not necessarily by there was no Roaring Moon. The Muck did end up coming. There was no Torkoal. He brought Haunter instead. So there's no Sun, which to me kind of screams that this Wake might be set up, and I'll have to find a way to position around it. Dragon Dance is not too scary of a setup move, mainly because I can still outspeed with Meowscarada, but he is still, I'll have to find ways to prevent it from setting up so I can get Arcanine in a better position late game. Those are my kind of initial thoughts, but the Haunter was interesting. I have no idea what it's there for. It's Levitate with that can block spin, so I thought maybe it's like the Donphan pivot, kind of make me think from clicking Rapid Spin or Ground Move, which, I mean, he also has Bronzong for that as well, so I could see some potential shenanigans with that, but yeah, that should be interesting. My switching, my lead is still going to be Bundle, even though with Muck there, I kind of didn't want to lead it anymore because I figured Muck could potentially lead and he could set up T-Spike, so I would have to get around that, but I figured I could scout and see what he's going to do, and I really wanted to get my Terra off early. I did not want to be in a position where I had to take rocks with my Assault Vest, and that'd be pretty bad to take unnecessary big chip like that, especially since it's mainly designed to take a hit from Wake or even Enamorous at higher ranges of HP. I didn't want to have to keep wishing into it. So yeah, we'll hop right into it. We lead with Bundle here. and we see what he leads with, and he opts to lead with Muck, like I thought. So I did want to initially lead with Donphan for that reason, but I just opted, I need to get the Terra off, but he reveals to be Rocky Helmet, which is bad, so I ended up taking that chip anyways, and he goes for Toxic here. So my Donphan's kind of on a timer, but I figured this is okay. I can at least pressure his team with Donphan, and kind of don't really need it as much since Roaring Moon's gone, and I have many ways to revenge Tusk, so I figured this was fine. Being Toxic, it's just a bit annoying, but its longevity is not as valuable anymore. I thought he would switch because I could have easily been... He doesn't know my item. I assume he just assumed I was going to be defensive. But Earthquake would have chunked this significantly. I would have two-shot it. And obviously I was faster than him because I had some speed on it. So I did creep over him a little bit. I thought he would go into like maybe Bronzong or even the Haunter. Just to take, like, use the Levitate basically as his pivot, but it ends up being Sticky Hold Helmet, which makes sense. It's good for Meowscarada. So this is his Meowscarada pivot. So that made me assume that Bronzong is still his bundle pivot, and Ghost is just gonna obliterate through him. He has no resist with Moon gone, so Terra Blast is a free click. But yeah, I go for knockoff. I take Rocky Helmet chip, and then he goes for Acid Armor. And this is a bit scary because if he's just like rest talk with just toxic Acid Armor, he could 1v1 my entire team. I would have to go and like start wish passing, but like he could start spreading this around and then just start using like Wake and Enamorous to pick things off throughout the game, and he'll get rocks up. Like this is actually really scary off the lead, but toxic Acid Armor, if he's like Body Press, he's gonna have it. It gets Body Press, I think. And then if his last move is Rest, then at least I know I can pressure him with Bundle because he doesn't look to be Spadef based off the knock damage. So I figure this is fine. I can try to chip him down, put him in range to have to click Rest, but he's not Body Press. I might be thinking of Swalot, but he does click Drain Punch, but he takes Rocky Helmet, which is big for me. If he was like Gunk Shot or something, then he would not have taken that chip, but I know for a fact he's probably going to click Rest here. I was going to double, but I didn't want to just risk it because I had no idea what his last move was. So I just go hard Bundle here, and I think he goes into Great Tusk. Yeah, he goes into Great Tusk here. He was just trying to take whatever hit the Donphan was going to go for, whether it be another Bulldoze or a knockoff on my Poison double down. But I immediately pressure this now, and I didn't want to click Terra Blast here. There was a good chance that Tusk could have been like Yachi Berry or something, and I wanted to get as much damage off of it as possible. So I figured I might as well just Ice Beam. I know Bronzong, like after an Ice Beam and 2 Terra Blasts, I can hit him. And just with Leftovers, there's a good chance, and like Protect, like Leftovers Protect, there's a good chance my Terra Blast wouldn't even 2-shot him. So I figured I'll just go for the slow Ice Beam here. He does reveal Leftovers, and I just go for Terra Blast here. I figure he's going to go for Rocks, and he does go for his Rocks. And I Terra Blast the following turn here, as he does show Protect. So I've already kind of nailed what most of these sets are kind of doing. It just kind of making sure I work around Wake and figuring out what this Haunter actually is. Wake comes in, you can see it's not that bulky. He can't do anything. This is basically a sack, so he used this basically to trade with Donphan, which is interesting to me. I thought maybe if you brought Roaring Moon over like Haunter or something, then that would be better for you for having Donphan removed like that with Muck, but it might have just been his best option versus most of my physical threats in general. But I claim the kill with Bundle here, and here I'm expecting him to... He can't go Bronzong, it's gonna die. This screams to me he's not Yachi Berry because he switched. Enamorous has to be Scarfed if he wants to revenge this. But again, he doesn't know my item, so if he does go Enamorous, it kind of tells me he's Scarfed. But since I have enough HP, I would be able to kill Enamorous with Ice Beam, but I would be put in range of Stealth Rocks. with Moonblast. Potentially, depends on the roll. So I'm wondering what his way to revenge this is. He could go Wake maybe and like show his hands with Terra Steel. I think at that point I would probably just U-turn, or yeah, probably U-turn and just sack Donphan or something. So it depended what he brought in here. He brings Honor. Immediately I'm thinking, okay, this has to be the Scarf. I looked at the calcs. He can't actually kill me with a Shadow Ball with the range I was at, but I think it was a roll. But it would put me in range of rocks regardless, and I didn't think that was a valuable trade, especially with how strong Bundle was versus the rest of his mons. So I figured I would scout it. I went hard into my SpDef Dragonite, and this absolutely nothing bounced off. I considered going for Roost here, but I know probably he's going to go Bronzong, and I could just Fire Spin into Roost versus Bronzong and just kind of 1v1 that anyways. And if he tried to make a hard switch, predicting like a Dragon move, he could have went Enamorous or into a defensive Tusk. So I figured Ice Beam would be pretty good. It could still 2-shot Honor if he decided to stay in, which I highly doubted. And I could always Roost off the next turn. Shadow Ball did nothing. So I decided to go for Ice Beam here, and I get a massive amount of damage off. And Tusk reveals Leftovers. So that damage was big. I need this chipped for Arcanine. And the Leftover is going to make this a little bit slower because now we can start pivoting in and getting Leftover recovery. And since I'm minus speed, there's no way I outspeed this. And I think he knows he probably outspeeds me because I'm pretty fat. So there's a chance like, or I mean, he doesn't, not entirely, I guess, because he doesn't know the full investment. But I could be faster than this, but if he is pretty fast, I don't want to risk it. He looks max HP though. So I figured he might just go for an Ice Spinner here. So I decided to go sack my Donphan, and I really hope he clicks Ice Spinner. And he does. He takes that Rocky Helmet chip, which is more chip, and now he's at 41%. And my Arcanine does, I think, roughly 24 to 25% to a max defense Great Tusk. So this is slowly getting chipped. But from here, it was hard to figure out what I wanted to go into. I could go Meowscarada and just try to revenge him. I didn't really want Bundle to come in because then it meant Honor was going to come in again, and Dragonite wasn't at full HP. I could have went Scream Tail and just clicked, like, started setting up screens, which was also a fair play, but I didn't want Bronzong to come in and start, like, protecting and Leftovers recovery. Like, that's what his team looked like it was going to be like, especially since he had a Toxic lead luck. So his plan was to basically force Toxic trades versus basically everything, and then start Leftover protect stalling with the rest of his team. So that's what it kind of looks like. So I'm not too sure what the Wake is. I feel like Enamorous might be Scarfed, but Honor was Scarfed, presumably. So I have no idea what Enamorous is. It could be Agility. Wake could be like a Breaker, like Specs. So I didn't want to go Arcanine yet and take Rocks. I can't go Dragonite. So I have to just go Bundle. It was the only thing that really kind of forces a trade here. And I know for a fact he has to keep Tusk. Like, Tusk is not going away. Otherwise, he's just straight up going to lose to Arcanine. So I figured he might just sack something here, and I assume it's just going to be the Bronzong. So I play it safe. I go for Ice Beam. That was better versus everything else on his team, rather than Terra Blast. And I know if he clicks Protect here, he's not going to get out of range of a Terra Blast here. And this is a pretty free click. I know this is a sack. Down goes Bronzong, and now I presume he's probably going to go into Honor again, but he could go Wake if he is set up. Again, I have no idea what Enamorous is, but he could go Wake and use like Terra type to kind of work around a Freeze Dry or something. Terra Blast only does like 40-ish%, 50% to Wake, so I would have had to U-turn in that position. So I was concerned Wake would come in and I would have to go hard into like Scream Tail. Dragonite didn't have its scale anymore, but depending on his item, I should be able to live one Dragon Pulse. If he's Draco, he's going to take the drops, which is fine. Then I can just bring in my my Bundle or even my Scream Tail after and just set up Light Screen. So he brings in Honor here. Now it actually died a Shadow Ball. before it was a roll that put me into range of rocks. Now I die for sure. I spent a long time thinking if I should go Meowscarada here, because I was considering maybe setting up Toxic Spikes at some point, because regardless of the Wake item or whatever it is, if I poison it, it's going to put it on a timer, which allows me to stall a little bit longer with Scream Tail, setting up Light Screen and stuff, using my other mons to pivot around, using U-turn. So I figured I didn't really want to risk Meowscarada taking that much chip, especially since I had no idea what a Namorous was. And if he clicked like a Sludge Bomb here, I would have just died. I was trying to preserve. Dragonite should be able to take 2, so I figured I might as well just go Dragonite here. I don't really need it for anything else. It's slower than everything, so it's not really that effective here. And I can find a way to get chip versus Haunter. So I end up going Dragonite here, and Sludge Bomb does 35%, as you can see. So, and he doesn't poison me. So I'm in a good spot here. I could click Roost, which unfortunately would not get me back to 100. I was like some decimal points below 50%. So I had no idea if he would go Tusk. So I would say this is probably the one misplay, one of 2 misplays that I had in this game, as we're going to be covering it. But I had to choose between Roosting or attacking here. Roosting was safe. It would have just been slower. Tusk, if it pivoted in, would have gotten leftovers recovery. And Namorous would have came in. I would have been able to live a hit unless it was like Specs or something like that. Maybe I think I lived Specs as well, but no, there's no way I lived Specs. Probably regular hit. But yeah, I didn't want to let anything in come in for free, so I opted not to Roost, because like I said, this mon doesn't really do anything else, and it can kind of secure some damage. I didn't think Wake would come in. I thought and I didn't think Great Tusk was going to come in. I thought he would preserve this, because if I am a physical Dragon Claw like I am, I one-shot Haunter. Haunter has horrible defense. So if he opts to stay in, I kill Haunter. He has absolutely nothing to pressure bundle for the rest of the game. And if he decides to go into like Wake or something, I could just Fire Spin and start chipping him that way as well. So it'll be very interesting how he decides to work around it. But I thought maybe he could use Enamorous to try to save the sack. So Ice Beam still does like over 50% to Haunter. So I figured Ice Beam is a pretty safe click here, because it would kill Tusk. Dragon Claw does remotely nothing to Tusk. And I didn't want Enamorous coming in for free. But I really don't think he should stay in with Haunter. I feel like it's a sack, unless he really wants to get like Enamorous or Wake in for free. But again, I have no idea which role is what. What's the setup win con? What's the breaker? Maybe they're both setup win cons. So I have no idea. So I choose the attack here. I don't go for Roost. I go for Ice Beam, because I really don't want Enamorous coming in for free. But Dragon Claw would kill this, so it'd be a bit unfortunate if he does stay in, which he does decide to do. No poison, but as you can see, Ice Beam does 53%. Dragon Claw would have killed this. Now I'm in a spot where I kind of have to sack. I don't really have anything to work around this, so I sack Dragonite here. And now I have to choose what I want to go into to revenge this. Obviously, I can go Bundle. He's locked into Sludge Bomb. He's not going to do it. I can go Meowscarada here and revenge him. I can click Play Rough, which would kill. It would two-shot Enamorous, kills Tusk. It would kill Wake upon switching. It was a good, decent click to switch into, but it would reveal him Scarped. So if he is like Terra Steel Wake, that would be pretty bad. But the more I was looking at it, I felt like Water was so strong that I kind of narrow-minded myself to Water, even though I felt like Steel made sense on his build since he didn't have Sun. So I really didn't want to go Meowscarada here, just to play safe. I could go Scream Tail, but he would two-shot me even with screens up, especially if he got a poison. And I didn't want to lose my Balloon yet, because if he decided to stay in like he did versus Dragonite and just sack Haunter versus Arcanine, Tusk is not in range. If he's max defense, I still need roughly 17% more chip. So there was really only one switch in, and that was Bundle. I go Bundle here, and I believe I click Ice Beam, as it was the best click versus everything. Didn't allow Namorous to come in. He decides to sack the Tusk instead of the Haunter, which to me screams he just wants the pressure with Haunter again. And now I'm in a position where Arcanine doesn't really have anything in its way outside of Wake, possibly as the switch-in, but again, if Wake is chipped, then I should be able to win with Bundle, depending on what the Enamorous is. It's tough. I would have to like Light Screen stall, chip him, and then like win. So it's a very precarious endgame. I figured if he was set up at some point, he would have to go into one of them. Bundle is not gonna punish Wake for setting up. I feel like if he were to have it, he would do it now. Nothing else was gonna pivot in. But he decides to go Haunter again, so I think he's really, really trying to force a sack at some point. And I really didn't want to sack Bundle, because if he is like a regular Enamorous, like it's last mon Bundle, I'd rather just keep this around. Ice Beam would one-shot it. Wake, if it is Terra Water, I wanted to preserve my Freeze Drive for it. So I really didn't want to sack Bundle. There was shades of me that wanted to sack Screamtail here, but because Screamtail all game wasn't in a position to click screens, just because he had a Haunter, he had a Muck, he had a Bronzong, and like Wake and Enamorous did nothing all game. So I'm like, I'm never bringing in Screamtail until one of his special threats are going to come in and hit the field. So yeah, I'm like Screamtail. I still feel like I need it as like a fail-safe pivot, or like on a double down, I could click Light Screen or something around these threats. It would also stop him from clicking. Bundle also stops him from clicking Superpower. But yeah, and I was looking at it, I'm like, I still need Arcanine. It's like the only way I feel like I can win the game. And then Meowscarada, I'm like, well, if he's like Dragon Dance, then I have no way to work around it outside of, chipping him down with Screamtail. So, but I figured if he was gonna lock himself in the Sludge Bomb, that would help Arcanine a lot for setting up. Shadow Ball did not kill me to like 50% maximum to Arcanine after Rocks, so I would have been well above, and I would have been able to Agility and just kind of Flare Blitz everything. So I figured, okay, I'm gonna go Meowscarada here and see what he clicks. If he locks himself in the Sludge Bomb, we'll go Arcanine. If he locks himself into Shadow Ball, I want to click Toxic Spikes. So I go into Meowscarada here, and he opts to click Shadow Ball, and we eat that up. So now he's in a position where if he decides to switch, he'll do it. He could go Enamorous. He's levitated, so if I go for Toxic Spikes here, he's not grounded. He will not remove it. Wake will guarantee be poisoned unless he goes hard Wake here, which to me seems very odd, because I could be Play Rough here, or like Bandit, for example, and I would just one-shot. Well, I would basically two-shot everything that came in, or one-shot if the Haunter stayed in, or if he went Wake. So I figured he was in a position where he had to stay in. So if I could go for Toxic Spikes, that would allow me to have a win-con endgame with Arcanine, because I have no way to chip Wake before I could Head Smash, and otherwise I'm not going to do any damage. So my goal was the Toxic Spikes here, go into Arcanine, set up a Agility, Flare Blitz, kill the Haunter, whatever. If he saved it, good for him. I don't think he should anyways. As I Agility, he would probably just die, and then he would go Wake, I presume, because Enamorous can't come in. I would just kill it with Head Smash. He would have to go Wake, and if he takes let me slow down. At that point, he would get poisoned from the Toxic Spikes, and I'm in a position now where he's either, I feel, and in my heart, he is either Terra Water or he is Terra Steel. If he's Terra Water, I can win with Bundle, Meowscarada would die here if he stayed in with Haunter. But I could win with Bundle and Screamtail, I feel, versus a Terra Water, whatever it's called, Walking Wake. Blank there for a second. If he's Terra Steel and I head smash him, I think he would just win, especially if he just Dragon Dances, because Meowscarada's gone. If he's like Booster Energy, which would make sense if there's no Sun, but he could easily be Specs as well with Terra Steel. He would just plow through me, and I don't think I can chip him hard enough into range. I would have to sack a lot of Mons, and if he is like a Scarf Enamorous in the back, I would lose anyways. Like a double Scarf Enamorous and Haunter, I would lose anyways. So the best thing I can do is put it in the position of winning versus Terra Steel. And so if he brought in Walking Wake, I would Flare Blitz the Walking Wake. This was my mind. I would Toxic Spikes, set up with Agility, kill a Haunter, Flare Blitz Raw the Terra Wake. Because if he's Terra Water, he's taking Chip plus the Poison, I can revenge him with Bundle. Or stall with Screamtail with Light Screen and Wish and stuff. Or just Gleam him and put him in range. Or he's Terra Steels and I one-shot him, and then I would head smash the Enamorous and I would win the game. So I figured that was my best option, but then I started to second guess myself because I really hate having to predict around the Terra like that, and I wasn't too sure because in the scenario where I bring in Arcanine after I T-spiked, Hunter could hard switch into Walking Wake. Granted, he has no idea what the item is, but he could hard switch into the Walking Wake, and I have I don't know what I could do in that scenario, because Hunter would still be alive, so he has a guaranteed Scarf of faster than Bundle, and he could just Shadow Ball spam with Enamorous cleaning up. I kind of just psyched myself out of that game plan, and I felt like that was the only way I could potentially win at this point. But I kind of just convinced myself versus my team, Water was the best Terra type to bring versus Steel. Granted, I prepped the best versus Terra Water. Terra Steel was a little bit more problematic. That was more play-based, which is what I had the out for, which is why I should have went for it. But I kind of just convinced myself he would be Terra Water. So I stayed in and did not click Toxic Spikes. I went for Play Rough. It killed. If he decided to hard switch into like Enamorous, it would two-shot it. And that was also another reason why I also didn't want a Toxic Spike, was in the off chance he went Enamorous and he started setting up. But I should have just done it because Arcanine would have been able to live the hit anyways, and then pressure Wake in that fashion afterwards. So it didn't really matter. So, and then if he was not going Wake anyways, but I thought he would be Terra Water. I could still potentially two-shot the Wake with this damage. So, but he immediately clicked Wake, which to me, at this point, it kind of just screamed he was Steel. How fast he clicked Wake after I killed Haunter with Play Rough, and I knew I messed up at this point. I knew I choked my only win path, because, and you can see here, he has his Booster Energy activate, his Photosynthesis, and it's Special Attack. So it's not Speed, but it's Special Attack, which means he's going to plow through whatever I want to pivot into, even like the Screamtail. Because if he is Terra Steel, he'll just go for it right here, and he'll kill whatever comes in. And so that was a horrible position. But I'm like, okay, if he's Dragon Dancing, then to get like speed, at least it's not super fast. But like at this point, I realized, yeah, I really should have just Toxic Spikes, taken that trade, because now I'm in a choice locked Mon into a Terra type, which is the worst thing you can do for yourself in this generation. And it's the reason why I hate choice items so much. But I really needed it this matchup, so it's really unfortunate. So I kind of tilted at this point. I knew I lost. There was no way I was beating this. if he was Terra Steel. If he was Water, I should just stay in. So he ends up being Steel. He's not Water. I missed the play rough. Get no chip. Doesn't matter. And he actually goes for Agility. I'm not even gonna lie. This whole time I was talking about Dragon Dance. Even in the like team prep stuff, I was talking about Dragon Dance. I forgot this thing learned Agility. It's the first move listed under the move pool, but I just totally forgot it learned Agility. So I knew for sure that I lost playing around this. So I end up sacking Bundle. It doesn't matter at this point. I thought he might Nasty Plot or something. He was just gonna like put Salt in the Wound because he only needed Terra Blast and like Water move. I go Scream Tail here. He ends up Terra Blasting me. Does a lot of damage. I go for Light Screen. Doesn't matter. He kills Scream Tail. I go into my Arcanine here. And he actually started taking a really long time on this turn. So with the Light Screen up, Terra Blast doesn't kill Arcanine. Dragon move does not kill Arcanine. So it means his Water move has to kill. And I assume that's what he was calculating, but he was taking far longer than just clicking Hydro Steam, which to me told me he did not have Hydro Steam. He must have had an inaccurate Water. He must have had Hydro Pump, which that means that is my only win con here. I couldn't even click. I wasn't even gonna click Agility because he's already Agility. I would not outspeed. I'm clicking Flare Blitz. I kill this. If he goes Enamorous, I live the superpower, and I would Head Smash him and kill him. If he got a boost from it and he didn't die for some reason, I would clean him up with Flower Trick Meowscarada. So I had a chance here, and he clicks Hydro Pump, but he does land it. So I actually did have an out there at the end. I figured, okay, so he must have Hydro Pump. He was hesitant to click it. To be fair, he could have just clicked it, and then if he was like Scarf Enamorous, he would have just picked off Arcanine and picked off Meowscarada, which I think that was the safer option, because if he had missed, I would have just won the game. So, assuming I landed Head Smash, but yeah, Dragon Pulse, he kills. But yeah, we end up losing to Strange and his Terra Walking Wake because I botched. I do feel like I bottled the endgame. Went against everything that I bought out to how to win the game. Just went against it, and that's mainly due to me hating to have to predict what the Terra type was, even though I figured out a way to potentially get around it. I just didn't find it was reliable enough. So we take the L. We are now 1-1. Next week, I think we're taking on Hawaiian Shaman. He is also 1-1. In fact, he was actually Strange's first week 1 matchup. And yeah, he has a pretty scary team. We'll do what we can to try to contain it and bounce back. I would love to be 2-1 next week, not 1-2. Yeah, it's all a process. Kind of figuring out what works with the team and what doesn't. I felt like last week, I feel like both weeks we've had solid prep overall. I feel like my prep game is still on point. A lot of it just coming down to plays. Last week I got unlucky, so I kind of had to really adapt mid-game. And then this week, I feel like I was able to work around that early game muck, and then I just kind of bottled it at the end there. But kudos to Strange. Great Walking Wake set for that end game there. Very interesting if I had brought in Hands over Arcanine. That's what I was considering at first, but Arcanine just looked really good stab-wise. So yeah, something to think about if we were to ever match up again in the future, but I'm not going to worry about that. Next week is all I'm going to be worrying about. Going into next week, 0-0. And I'm going to view my opponent as such as well. It's just going to be one match. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Hopefully you learned from my thought process of what not to do. And also kind of sticking to your gut in clutch moments. I tend to go away from my gut a lot. And yeah, ended up bottling it here. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. And I'll see you guys for next week.